Family, this is Will Martin, and you are listening to The Difference. Jermaine,
Sure.
you are in the house.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I came here yesterday. I was so eager to do the show.
Yeah.
I came a day early.
I heard, man.
There we go.
I know, man, that you miss us, and we miss you too, man.
Thank you. Wait, can you keep saying that in 2026? I need you to be saying that in 2026, right? So, what do you know about the state treasurer's office?
Not too much.
Thank you. Okay, well, you know what? We're going to fix that today.
All right.
We're going to make sure to fix that today. We have in the house a constitutional officer,
Nice.
right? Not just a person, a constitutional officer in the state of Wisconsin. John Leiber. I should say the honorable John Leiber, who is actually the constitutional officer of whom I am speaking. He is the Wisconsin State Treasurer.
Awesome.
And so he's going to enlighten us on what the treasurer does. And I think you'll be surprised by what it can do and what it can't do. Right. So first of all, I can tell you right now, he cannot touch the money. Right. So that is the first thing is do not run for treasurer thinking you can touch the money. You cannot touch the money. Right. So, John, thanks for coming in on the show.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So, and you've been in office now for 3 years.
Yeah,
right?
Time really flies by. I took office January 2023.
Wow. Okay. All right. So that's got to be fun. It worked out very nicely. So let's back this all the way up, right? I want to talk about who you are. So, John, where are you coming from?
So I come from a lot of different places, actually. I spent my family has been in Wisconsin for it's on my website, I think 7 generations now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's been a lot. They first ancestors moved here even before it was a state.
Okay.
So quite a long time. Most of my family is from the Racine area, and that's where I spent most of my childhood.
Okay.
But I also lived around, we traveled overseas. When I was younger, my family actually lived in Saudi Arabia. My father worked for an oil company out there.
Yeah, I lived in Israel, so we would have been near, but not anywhere we could go. You could have come from there to Israel, but I understand back in that day, I could not have gone from Israel to there because of the passport issues.
There's some interesting stories back. Yeah, but things were not friendly back then between the countries. So, but I was over there in the 80s and 90s. But then we moved back to Wisconsin, back to home, and I finished high school here, went to college here, got my law degree here, and I've lived here my entire adult life.
Okay, wait. Where did you go to college?
UW Parkside.
Okay, and where did you go to law school?
In Madison, University of Wisconsin.
Beautiful. All right, so everything's been in Wisconsin.
Oh yeah.
All right. Okay.
I started kindergarten in Wisconsin, finished high school in Wisconsin.
Okay, so the beginning and the end, there's a little bit of middle that's not quite.
Yeah, but as I tell people, you don't really get a choice where you move when you're 5 years old.
Yeah. So what was that like actually being in a foreign country in your formative years then?
It made me appreciate America a lot more, actually.
In what way?
Just realizing the things you can do here, you can't do there, the things you take for granted here that just not. I mean, as a kid, it's you focus on the things you see, like the TV shows were very much censored over there.
Okay.
They didn't show any men and women get too close. They just cut and then it went to a different scene. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'm serious. And we, instead of a lot of cartoons, we had like German documentaries dubbed in English. It wasn't. It was odd in a way that was noticeable and kind of irritating. So we brought back a lot of back then videotapes of American shows, so we could actually watch the shows we liked because. Wow. The women didn't have enough clothing on back then or something, according to the social mores of the country.
So you lived in an Arab nation.
Yes.
Although
I will say it was kind of living there was kind of like living on a military base.
Okay. Because that's what I was wondering is, so I think a lot of the audience wouldn't know what it's like to live in the Middle East. And even in my case versus yours, what was available, I didn't see a lot of American shows. When I lived in Israel, I saw British shows, if I saw anything in English. And so a lot of the television was in Hebrew, some in Arabic. And I'm assuming that a lot of what was available to you, generally speaking, would have been in Arabic.
So, yeah, we had one English channel, Channel 3, and that was put on basically by the company for all the employees because there was, 10, 15,000
Wow, okay.
Westerners there.
So you had like a little American enclave, an English-speaking enclave at least, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And it was very much modeled on. It started out as like a work camp for Americans, Westerners, and then it grew to kind of a
And what
compound.
kind of corporation was this that had all these employees there?
It was, at the time, it was called Aramco. Now it's called Saudi Aramco. It was nationalized in the 80s, I
Yeah.
believe.
So this would be the oil company.
Yes, and originally Aramco stood for Arabian American Oil Company. It was kind of like
Okay.
owned by a lot of U.S.
Like a
companies.
joint venture.
Yeah, and then it just got bought out.
Okay.
But when it was founded, it was an American company, and they set it up like a military base. Our grocery store was called a commissary.
Okay.
And we had like gates around everything, so you couldn't people just couldn't walk in or anything. So it was a secure area, and gas was 50 cents, which was cheap even back then. And I remember people saying this is kind of like what an American town in the 50s kind of felt like.
Okay.
It felt, kind of, very safe, but very kind of isolated, just kind of old fashioned in the way things were ran. And that's kind of appealing for a lot of people, especially in the 80s.
Wow. Okay. So a very different way of growing up.
Yeah.
And then you came back here.
For part of it, yeah. It was interesting because we would live there for a couple of years, come back here. So it was kind of whiplash from.
So coming back and forth between these two very different cultures.
And because I didn't think it was too strange as a kid living there at the time, because we had all the convenience of a Western society. But when I moved back, people were like, so do you ride a camel to work? Right. Do you live in a tent out in the desert? I'm like, no, we live in a townhouse. We drive a Volvo. I mean, it's not it. It's the perception of what it is very different. Kind of think Arizona, but a little like the weather. Yeah. But in a small town where you can't really leave.
Well, I think just because a lot of people don't know much about the area, I think about, as I understand, there's some mountains. There are mountain ranges in parts of the country. I think on the northern,
western part.
Oh, west. Okay.
So I got to go there. I was in the Boy Scouts. They have Boy Scouts, Boy Scouts of America in Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got to go camp out. And it's really beautiful. It's actually, they say that the mountain range there, the Asir Mountains, are kind of the mirror image of the mountains right across the Red Sea in Africa.
Okay.
So there's kind of the vegetation. Well, yeah, kind of that mountainous vegetation. Some of the wildlife is similar. So it was very different from a desert.
Okay. Well, and it's funny because the time when I lived in Israel, people would think like, oh, well, I think a lot of folks, at least in my community, thought of it like Jesus time, right? That like the prophets and folks were still walking away, walking around like that, right? And so, we would have these conversations. People would ask me all sorts of questions like, well, oh, it's in another language, and all these other things. So I think it's so formative to have these experiences, to have completely different culture that you're growing up in. And how did that change what you did when you came home? If at all, I mean.
Well, it wasn't just living there. The interesting part about living overseas is we came back to the States every year. And on the way back, we stopped at countries along the way. So it wasn't just going to Saudi Arabia, coming home. I got to see Greece. I got to see Italy.
Yeah.
We went to China, Japan, Australia, and Germany. So we got to travel a lot. And
how's that changed your life though, as a kid growing up? A lot of kids don't have that privilege to be able to leave the state, let alone, leave the country. So how does that change your life?
Well, I'm really grateful for the opportunities. I mean, almost all of my travel was done in that period from like 5 to 15 when we were back and forth over there.
Yeah.
And I, really haven't had the opportunity to do much since. So I'm just really thankful that I got to see all of this stuff. And it I don't know if it awakened my interest in history, but it made me appreciate more being able to connect a physical place with an event that happened, and just made me more interested in world affairs and just, world history.
Man, I tell you, for me, when that year that I lived in Israel, right? So I asked for Italy. And I got Israel, right? Exactly. And they're both on the Mediterranean. So I go, and back in those days, this is before Google. So you couldn't Google anything. You couldn't actually, you had to go to the grocery store, to the bookstore, right? I got a 2-cassette tape set of lessons to learn Hebrew. right before I left, and I said a few words in what those tapes would have recommended, right? And kids just bust out laughing, just absolutely started rolling. And it come to find out that the tapes had been made by Russian Jews who had a particular way of speaking Hebrew. And I know this is all just kind of crazy, for the average person, right? But the idea of going and spending all that time overseas and learning another language, and you were in that sort of English speaking enclave.
Yes.
But in my case, I was going to school with average Israeli kids. So I got a chance to spend the night in the Church of the Nativity. So I actually spent Christmas Eve in the church in Bethlehem.
Wow.
And they normally wouldn't allow Americans to go, but nobody was watching me. So I was like, all right. So I was able to go and spend my time in Bethlehem there. Or I went to Nazareth and spent some time in Nazareth. Went to the Sea of Galilee, hitchhiked my way down to Jerusalem.
Wow.
For Easter. So there were all these places I had read about as a kid, to then just be able, and teenagers don't have the good sense enough to know that you're probably not as safe as you think you are. But because I didn't know any better, I was just like, okay, great. Sure, I'll hitchhike. Sure, I'll stay in someone's apartment while we're working our way down to Jerusalem and all. So for me, it opened up seeing an entirely different world and realizing, hey, we don't all think the same. We don't all have the same religion. We don't all speak the same language. And it just made it much clearer to me that there's a huge world out there. And we're just part of it.
Yeah. I mean, it helped me understand to not take for granted that the way we do things is the way everyone does it. It's not. And living overseas, you get used to you do things differently than everyone else. And you kind of have to be comfortable with saying, you know what, I'm doing it differently than they do. That's okay.
Right.
And you come back here, people want to do something differently. Well, that's okay too.
Yeah, I think it does. It opens you, right?
Yeah.
To the fact that there are just different ways of doing things and different belief systems, right?
And I've been in the other shoe where I've been in the minority. So it's not necessarily wrong to do it some way, a different way. But
right. So you come back here, you get involved. What made you decide to go to law school?
Well, it had been something. So I actually went back to law school. How old was I? 40?
Okay.
Over 40.
So it was not something you did immediately.
Right. But it was something I'd wanted to do. And I wanted to get that degree. And it was something I kind of regretted not doing. And it just so happened that the timing worked out for me I applied. First year I got waitlisted. And then the second year I got admitted. Okay. And that was 2019.
Oh, wow.
And if you remember what happened the very next year.
COVID, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So it was a very unusual law school experience because it was mostly remote because it had to be.
Why did you want to go?
Why did I want to go? I wanted to know more. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be able to have that skill set because I had worked in the state legislature, helping get bills passed, helping draft legislation. I thought,
so you were working as a staffer?
Correct.
For one of the members?
Right. And I had really wanted to, I really enjoyed it. And I kind of wanted to know more about what exactly we were getting through, what exactly we were passing into law, and how that actually worked. And I kind of had an idea, but I really wanted to get a better grasp on when we put this language in a bill and pass it, what actually happens next? How is that interpreted? How is that used? And I thought, even if I don't practice law and I decide to go back into government, it's going to help me out in that career as well. Yeah. So it kind of opened up some possibilities because there are a lot of careers that don't necessarily need a law degree, but it definitely helps to have one. So I was just kind of keeping my options open too. So I knew it was going to be a benefit. I didn't know how, but I knew it was something I really wanted to do. And I kind of felt like, well, this is probably my last chance. I don't really see myself going back to school in my 50s and 60s. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it now. Wow.
And so, so obviously prior to that, you were working in the legislature as a staffer for one of the members. Which house were you working in?
So I'd been in both, actually.
Okay. So you actually served in both as a staffer in both the Senate and the Assembly.
Right. And that's not too uncommon, although I did it backwards. Usually you start in the Assembly and go to the Senate. I did the other way.
Okay.
Just how it worked out.
Yeah.
But it was they're different houses. They have different rules, but it's good to have perspective on what each side is doing as well.
What did you learn? I mean, for those who are listening and maybe they've got family members who are interested in politics, maybe they're not going to run for office, but
Mhm.
they might love working in the legislature as a staffer. What did you learn in that experience?
I learned that it's not as simple as some people might think on how to get legislation passed. It's not just a good idea and then it magically appears in the law
Mhm.
and a bill. There's a lot of groundwork, a lot of work that has to happen before an idea even comes to light, and there has to be a lot of discussions. It sounds like people are wasting time, but it's really important to kind of hash out what exactly the possible problems of the bill are. And I'll say this, there's a lot of ideas that never see the light of day, and that's a good thing
Mhm.
because some things sound great, but when you actually try to put it into practice, turns out it's really, really terrible and has a lot of unintended consequences. So you want to get all that stuff done beforehand so you don't look like your boss doesn't look like a fool when he brings out a bill that everyone hates suddenly.
Right. At the end of the day. Everyone gets upset about the partisanship, the fact that seemingly Democrats and Republicans can't possibly work together. What was your experience of people working together or not in the legislature?
So way back in the olden days, 10 years ago or so now,
Okay.
even before that, it was much more collegial, I understand. But even then, there's most bills aren't partisan. Most bills make a necessary change that's often requested by either an industry or local government or firefighters or police officers or somebody to make a needed change. There's a loophole, there's an oversight, somebody forgot to put this in the law, or it didn't cover something that just came up. There's always new technology, right? So that kind of legislation usually is fine. It passes through. But the problem is you don't hear about it. That doesn't make the
Yeah.
news. When a necessary change that everyone agrees to sails through the legislature, that's not a news story. You only hear about the issues that have somebody on the other side. When
Right.
there's a he said, she said type thing, when there's a debate, when there's a controversy.
Mm-hmm.
So those have been blown up into that's all that's happening there. But it's really not. There's most of the stuff. For example, we just passed a budget this last year.
Right.
It's over $100 billion. That took both sides to vote on it, the governor to sign it. I mean, yeah, we hear about the things they disagreed on, the things that got vetoed, the things that got cut, but $100 billion they all agreed on.
Yeah.
So most of it is bipartisan. It's just the small ones that aren't, that's the focus.
So we're just really being sold that things are much worse than they are.
Well, it's like the old saying, dog bites man, no story. Man bites dog, that's a new story.
Right. Right.
And if you only saw one of those a year, you think, wow, there's a lot of that happening. But in proportion, not that much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? We're going to continue this conversation right after this break. Hello, family. This is Will Martin, and you are listening to The Difference, and we are talking to the Honorable John Leiber, who is Wisconsin State Treasurer. And we were talking earlier about the fact that you lived overseas, that you came back and forth. You end up coming back. You work for the legislature for both houses, which is something. And then the fact that you went to law school. But you mentioned to me during the break. I love these breaks because then I learned stuff that I didn't know. You actually were in Saudi Arabia during the Gulf War.
Yeah, during the Desert Storm, the first one.
Okay.
Back in what was that 91? I was 13 years old.
During the war.
Yep. And we were living in the town of Dhahran, and that's kind of the headquarters for the company. So we were a target of Scud missiles.
Oh.
So, yeah, a few weeks before the war, we were all issued gas masks. But I don't know if you know about gas masks. They come with different canisters depending on which poison gas. And they just gave us a bunch and said, take a guess. We have no idea what they're going to be putting in the missiles. So, good luck.
Okay, Jermaine. You ever thought about like having to deal with chemical warfare and
No, sir.
No, sir. Right. See, this is a little different than the average day, right? We are so blessed in this country because we don't even have to think about this stuff. And for you to be there during the Gulf War, for me, I was actually living in Israel. You remember back when the Beirut, when the Marines were bombed in Beirut? So that was back when I lived in Israel. Wow. And I remember as a kid, I was 16 living over there. And, you hear about wars overseas. Yeah. But even when you go overseas, you don't think about the war being where you are. Yeah. So I remember the sky just being full of these helicopters coming over. So the Marines that were in bad shape after that bombing, they brought them straight to Israel. And you could just see, the sky, and they were just bringing them over. Wow. And you didn't, at the time I was like, okay, I don't know what this is. Right. It's like it gets your attention, right? Because you see that many helicopters in the sky, like what is going on? Right. But they were bringing the guys who were in bad shape. They were bringing them to Israel immediately. And then the guys who were in stable shape, they took them to Germany. Wow. And so it's so incredible that this kind of stuff was going on, and I just wouldn't even think about being there. When we lived in Israel, there'd be these bombings, things would happen. As a teenager, you just think like, oh, that's not going to happen to me. Right. The stupid stuff that I did as a teenager, I remember like, oh, what's this alleyway go to? Wow. I mean, be in Nazareth, right? Be in Nazareth and be walking down these dark alleyways like, oh, let me just see what's back here. Yeah,
not me.
Right. My mother was like, I'm so grateful you never told me any of these stories, because she'd have been like, no. And my brother and sister, they would be like, oh, can we go? Mm-mm. Nobody else is going. That's it. We're not living through this again. So, but it's amazing. So you have all those experiences, you come back, you work in the legislature, you go to law school.
Yes.
When did this ever turn into, I think I should run for state treasurer?
Well, yeah, it's not something, it's not an office people aspire to as a child. It's there's no kid out there saying, oh,
Jermaine, you didn't dream of like one day being the state treasurer?
No, maybe the president.
Okay. You know what? See, this is what I'm saying. They're like, I think people know like maybe 3 offices. The rest of the stuff people just don't know about.
So I think it came about a part of a lot of different pieces. So I worked in legislature. So obviously the state treasurer's office is in the Capitol.
Right.
So I was familiar with that the office existed. And during my time there, the powers had been moved away from the state treasurer's office. And we actually had a constitutional referendum to get rid of the office. And that failed. It's like 60-some% voted against getting rid of it. Mm-hmm. So that had all happened. So it was kind of on my radar. And I was, I've been involved in politics for now over 20 years, helping out in campaigns, helping out on, running losing a few school board races myself. Okay. So I was not unfamiliar with how.
Wait, you had run for office before? You ran for state treasurer?
I did. Well, not for state treasurer. Yeah. I'd run for some local offices.
Okay. All right. So, but you had been involved
Yes, I lost all of them.
Okay.
So don't ever let that hold you back. If you're losing a local race, it's great experience, and it kind of put me in touch with a lot of people that led me to where I am today. So, I'd been involved. I was aware of how that worked, and so I was watching all the races, and I was interested in how do you run for state treasurer, and I was watching in the, um, 2018 cycle, and that was not a great one for Republicans. And I was just following that race because it was interesting to me. And I was looking at it and what it took, and I'm like, I could probably do that. I didn't say, oh, I could win that one myself, but I was like, that seems, that's interesting how they approach that. I feel like I could do that, but it's like, no, I got too much else going on. This is not something I'm going to spend a year of my life to do. I've got other things on the radar. In 2018, I actually ran for the assembly and lost that.
Yeah.
But,
okay. So you've run locally and lost.
Yes.
You ran for the legislature and lost.
Yes.
What in the world made you think, like, you know what? I think now I want to go take on a statewide office.
Well, a lot of it also has to come down with timing, right? So I had just graduated. So I honestly, because of COVID, I was able to graduate law school in 2.5 years instead of 3 years.
Okay.
Because when you're doing all your classes are online, you can kind of double up if they're just recorded. So I took as many as possible, finished a semester early. So I graduated December of 21.
Well, okay. I hope you got out cheaper then.
Yeah, I saved a whole semester's worth of tuition.
Okay, there we go.
See, fiscally conservative.
Okay,
right
that's
there.
beautiful.
So spring of 22 comes around, and I decided after my assembly race, I'm out of politics. I'm staying out. But I couldn't stop paying attention. I guess it kind of gets in your blood. So I just kept following along, and I was looking at the treasurer race, and I thought, I think I could probably win this one. I mean, there weren't too many people running.
That's right.
It's going to be an open seat. And I'm like, I know what needs to be done, and I know what the message needs to be. And I think I can really help the rest of the ticket. My biggest priority was, you know what? I want to get down there and basically be like a supporting role for the ticket and help Republicans win.
Okay.
And I think I knew what needed to be done. So, but I didn't do it right away. I kind of delayed. I'm like, do I really want to do this? I just starting working as a attorney now. It's a big commitment, and I was kind of deciding against it.
Yeah.
And then one day it just kind of like, you know what, if I'm going to do it, I should do it right now.
Yeah.
This timing's never going to work out again like this. The situation's never going to be as perfect. Everything fits. So I told my wife, Diane, I said, I'm going to run for state treasurer. And I said, look, I know it sounds a little crazy, but this was in April of 22. I said, the primary's in August.
Which is pretty late.
Yeah.
To decide.
I told her it's 4 months away. I'm going to run for 4 months. If I lose, you know what? I'm done. It's just 4 months.
Yeah.
It's over the summer. We get to travel around the state.
Yeah.
Not a huge commitment. I said, it's not going to take too much time out of our day. And if I lose, then, at least I tried. I said I could try, and it's done.
Yeah.
So I jumped in, went full bore at it, and then I won the primary. And I said, well, I guess I got to do this for a few more months. We'll see if I win. And then I won.
Well.
So, and now I'm state treasurer.
Okay. Hey, Jermaine. So, how big do you think the state is?
How big do I think the state is?
Yeah.
As far as people?
No. I mean, like physically, here, because I think this is I think people just don't realize how big this state is.
Yeah, well, it's pretty big, man.
So I was told once that the distance between Kenosha and the northernmost point of Wisconsin is the same distance from Kenosha down to almost Louisville or Lexington, Kentucky.
Really?
Yeah.
It stretched that.
Yeah. So it is one very long state. So having run statewide, and he can certainly attest to it, the state is 66,000 square miles. So this week I drove from Racine to almost Superior.
Oh wow.
Okay. So that's something we're talking about, like to the top of the state, right?
Yeah.
So that was about 7 hours. Okay. One way. Got there, did an event, did my thing, got back in the car, and had to start driving south
Oh,
because I needed to be to another meeting the next morning.
Oh.
So this was like literally Wednesday. I drove 7 hours, then got back in the car, drove another hour or two, and then had to get up at crack of dawn and still drive another 5 or to get back down because it's that big a state.
wow.
And I think most people just a lot of people I know that live in Milwaukee who don't really leave
Yeah.
this area of the state,
Well,
right?
I mean, if they do leave, they go south.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they
And
go-
so I just think a lot of people just have no clue, like, man, how far is it to just think about this state has 2 Great Lakes, right? Michigan and Superior. And then on the other side, you got the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
It is a big
It's a huge
state,
yeah.
So kudos to you, man, that you were able to go out, run around the state and actually pull this off.
Well, like I said, it's a lot of timing. And I mean, I don't think of the state in miles, it's hours. How many hours will it take to get from, Eau Claire to Green Bay, or from, like you said, Kenosha to anywhere else? You pick the farthest spot, but
Cornucopia.
Yeah, but it does help living not too far from interstate, so it's a little easier to get around. But there's a lot of the state that you can't use the interstate to get from places, especially going from east to west up north, or to the southwest part
So I
of
think
the state.
there's something like 600,000 people that live in Milwaukee. But the average municipality in the state of Wisconsin is a population of 1,500. So there's a lot of small towns.
Yeah, but I will say that's kind of been one of the fun parts of the job and the campaign. Just being able to travel our state so much. It really is a beautiful place.
So okay, so you won this office, right? So you are one of several constitutional officers of the state of Wisconsin. You were in the history books now.
Yes, the state puts out something called a blue book every year. So they've got all the pictures of all the legislators and constitutional officers. So,
and then they have the historical list.
Yes.
Everybody who's ever served in that office as well.
They do. And of course, these days they have Wikipedia. So you can, it's probably a little easier to find for most people.
Okay.
But
All right. And so, you're in this office now. So tell us, what is it like to be, you work in the legislature, you work in the state capitol.
Yes.
In Madison, right? What's the job like?
It's a variable job. So some days are busy, some days are not. So believe it or not, well, let me ask you, how many staff do you think I have?
I think you have 1 staffer.
I have 0 staffers.
What?
Yeah, I have to do it all myself.
You are the staff.
I am. I do have an interns occasionally, but my workload is basically all on me. And some days it's a lot of responding to people, getting back, phone calls, emails, meetings. There's some conferences with other state treasurers I go to. But probably right now, especially the biggest part of the job is it's the BCPL, the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands.
Okay.
So I'm one of 3 board members with the Attorney General and the Secretary of State, and we manage.
So there are 3 members of this board.
Yes, and that's it. It's all elected, and it's a small agency.
And this is a constitutional structure as well, right?
This is actually in the state constitution since 1848. They set this up, and the idea was the state was given somewhere around 3 million acres of land to sell and some other assets. And the job of this board was to manage that land and invest it in schools.
Right.
So for
this is kind of how we paid for statehood, right? Because as I understand it, the Bureau of Commissioners, is that right? The Bureau of Commissioners of Public Lands?
The Board of Commissioners of Public Lands.
So, but this group predates the state.
Well, this was in the state constitution, so it was created, like it was anticipated before the constitution was even ratified.
But I thought that they granted that some of that revenue that we got helped us create the state itself, like generate revenue for it.
So some of the land was granted at statehood, some of the land in the happily titled bill, the Swampland Act.
What?
Congress. Basically, back then they said any land that's partially wet or flooded, it's useless. So we're going to call it a swamp, and we don't want it. So you know what, Wisconsin, you can have all this federal land that is a swamp because we don't care about it.
Wow.
And back then, of course, if you draw out an acre in a survey and there's just a little tiny corner that's wet, oh well, the whole thing's swampland. So there was a lot of good land in there. So So of the 3 million acres, we have about a little over 70,000 acres left,
Still remaining
and
that
all
have
the
not
rest
been
was
sold.
right. All the rest was sold off to the public, and now they pay taxes on that.
Yeah.
And the revenue was used to, some of it was saved, some of it was used to fund schools. Today, we're not really selling the land. It's mostly forest land, and we sell off the rights to harvest the timber, and then we get, I think it's over $1 million from that land.
Okay.
The rest of the money, though, $1.6 billion is now in the fund.
Okay. So just to be clear, you serve on a board. You're one of 3 members.
Yes.
Okay. This is managing, really, it's managing the state's assets in terms of the land.
It's managing some land, but also what's called the Common School Fund.
Okay.
And that was another setup.
So
in the
what
state
is that?
constitution.
What is the Common School Fund?
So it was originally intended to fund all schools everywhere. So imagine never paying property tax. That was kind of the vision.
Wait. Jermaine, what do you think about not paying property tax, man?
What I think about not paying it?
Yeah, not having to pay property tax.
Man, I think it would be great because I mean, you're spending money everywhere else. So.
Exactly. So I mean, the idea that they actually have this fund. So when we come into statehood and we've got 3 million acres and they're selling off property, and so we don't have to do this back in the day because there's enough from all of that,
Right.
all that land, right?
Right.
And then all the timber coming from that land.
Right.
Apparently, you guys aren't not making enough money anymore for us to not have to pay property tax.
Well, way back when,
See, this is inflation, man.
well, the problem with using land as a funding source for land sales as a funding source is you eventually sell the land off.
Right.
So it's not going to last forever.
The state was making money selling the land, right?
And then using
we got granted all this land to become a state, right?
Right.
Well, eventually you sell it off.
Well, I mean, what if the land has like minerals and stuff underneath it? So that'd be something.
But see, now people like you and me own it, not the state anymore.
Exactly.
So by the time we finish selling it off, you sell it one time, right?
Yeah.
Well, you don't get any more money from it at that point unless you create a property tax.
Well, what's interesting, so Western
So
states,
they're getting you now is what the deal is, right? They sold it to you, but you're really only renting the land because really and truly, don't pay that property tax and see what happens.
Yeah.
There we go.
so Western states were able to have like oil rights and mineral rights, and they get revenue from that.
We were too early.
We don't have any oil in Wisconsin.
Right.
We don't have any big mineral deposits, so we couldn't get any of that anyway. So our resource was not exactly ongoing stream.
Our resource is the timber.
Yeah.
Right.
All that forest land.
Right.
But the problem is if you keep all the land owned by the state, then it's not paying property taxes, which means all the local areas aren't getting the money. So the idea was never let's have the state own all the land. It's to sell it off and let people improve the land and do whatever they want with it. And that's how our economy grows.
But I love the idea that originally we weren't paying property tax, right?
Well,
in terms of like being able to generate enough.
I mean, originally the federal government was funded by customs duties. I mean, we've had to, as those kind of become less and less, the necessary amount, we have to put in other taxes.
Right.
So our fund now, so back to the Common School Fund, though, that's up to $1.6 billion. But per the Constitution, we're not allowed to spend any of the principal. We only can give out what we make.
Okay.
So we can never dip into it. It only grows from now on.
Okay. So we got $1.6 billion and we can't touch it.
Well, but we can make money off it. So
okay.
This last year, we made a little over $70 million in profits.
Wow.
And we distribute it, we break it down. There's a formula in the Constitution, and we send it to every school district in the state. No funds, like needs based. It's just, if you have this, you get an amount of money based on how many students there are. That's it.
So it's just population. It's a census.
Yep. No funding formulas, no special things.
Okay.
Just here's how many students, here's your portion of the money. So that goes out every single year without fail. And it's gone up. It used to be 10 years ago, it was 35 million. Now it's 70 million.
Okay.
Because the legislature made a very important change. They allowed us to invest in stocks.
You couldn't before?
Just bonds.
Oh, wow.
So imagine trying to fund all that with just, federal treasury bonds or municipal loan program.
Am I correct that the money goes to the school libraries?
So it goes into that fund. It can be used for not just strictly books or bookshelves or something. I've seen some libraries use it for, one made a they call a maker space. So they had 3D printers,
Okay.
teaching kids how to use technology. Some use it for computers because obviously kids need those skills these days. So generally technology, library improvements, books, it all goes there. And what's important about this fund is it's the only dedicated funding for school libraries in the entire state.
Okay.
There's no state budget item that just goes to school libraries. It's all just part of regular school aid. So this is specifically just for that program.
Okay.
So without this money, school library could be cut to zero and there'd be nothing anyone could do about it.
Wow. Okay. That is amazing. So you are helping distribute money. First of all, you're helping manage the portfolio, right? So this is like you've got almost $2 billion portfolio that you were helping manage.
Yeah, and when I started, I think it was 1.4. Now it's up to 1.6, and it's like I said, it's kind of a weird fund. Like I see people look at it and say you should be growing much faster than that. Except I have to explain we're not really allowed to use the money we make to reinvest it. We have to give out everything we make.
Right.
So imagine if you were trying to save money, but you were never allowed to use any of your investments. Like imagine trying to save for retirement, but the only money you could use was money you put in. All the money you make, you have to spend right away.
Yeah.
It's going to grow a lot slower. So we have to grow, we have to split. We're trying to grow it, but we're also trying to make as much money this year.
Right. But you cannot use that. You cannot reinvest that money. It has to go out.
Right. By per state constitution, all income has to be distributed.
Okay.
So it grows partly based on if you buy stock, well, if you don't sell it, the value goes up.
Okay. So let me ask you, what is the, so that's the principal work that you're doing.
Right.
You are really one of the commissioners, essentially. You're making sure to manage this portfolio. It's at least oversight, right? And there's a staff.
There is. It's very small, but yes, there is.
Okay. So, and then my understanding is that this also, BCPL, right? This Board of Commissioners of Public Lands, this group also makes loans.
Yes. In fact, the organization it's a municipal loan program. It gives out, I believe it's around $300 million in outstanding loans right now.
Okay, wait. So when local government needs money.
Yes.
In this case, they don't have to go to a bank in the private sector. They can come to they can come to the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands, and they can actually borrow money from this state entity, right?
Yes. And it's actually a great deal for everyone. So the BCPL loan program is very quick because we don't need to check on their collateral or do all these studies, because if it's a taxing entity, we know we can intercept any state aid they get sent if they don't pay up.
There we go.
So we have no risk in this.
There we go.
The municipalities, school districts, all sorts of government entities can get a loan really quick. And so they need something it's competitive with the banks. We also have no prepayment penalties. So if you get all your money the very next day, you can pay it off. No problem.
So a government a government entity like the city of Milwaukee can come to you, can ask for a loan, whether it's to fix roads, whether it's to build infrastructure, any of those things that are necessary. They can actually get the money in short turnaround. They don't have to go through any complicated thing like you traditionally would at a bank.
Exactly. And what we see a lot of is smaller communities. Their fire truck broke, and you can't really go without that, or their snowplow broke. So they need they have some of the down payment, but they need the rest to just finance it. So, a loan for $150,000, and then it's not on their budget this year, but they'll put it in the next year.
Right.
And the best part I tell people about this is all the interest they pay goes straight to the schools. So it's going right back into their communities.
Okay. All right. No, that is beautiful. I know I see Jermaine moving around here in the background, so it must be time for another break. Family, we are in the final segment of this show. You're listening to The Difference and Jermaine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you know where to look? Sometimes the government has your money. Now, first of all, they take a lot of your money.
Yeah, man. He say he my uncle, but
There we go.
I've never seen him.
Yeah, you don't know Uncle Sam?
I know him, but I don't know him.
Yes, exactly. So it's usually one-way transaction, right? The money goes one direction. Do you know that they sometimes have what they call unclaimed property?
Yes.
Some of your money, and sometimes you can look your name up and find yourself on there and ask for your money back.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you know where to look?
I forgot the name of the site.
Oh, well, you know what? We got the state treasurer here, John Leiber, the Honorable John Leiber.
Honorable.
So he can actually help us on John, where can we look? If somebody's listening to this show and they're like, hey, I might have some money, maybe the state's got some of my money that they can actually give me back. Where can I look?
So in Wisconsin, it's actually administered by the Department of Revenue now.
Okay.
So if you go to the Wisconsin Department of Revenue's website, there's a tab for unclaimed property. And if you click that, there's a button where it says search for your claim. You just type in your name and see if there's any money for you.
And this is not one of these gotcha things, right?
No.
So let's be clear, Jermaine, because some of our people in our community be like, no, I'm not going to look because these people will be looking for me. So exactly right. So no, let me just be clear. This is not one of these gotchas. You could literally look yourself up.
Oh, man.
And if you show up on the list, it's legitimately your money. This is not one of these like makeup, things. Because I know some people would be like, wait a minute. No.
Yeah, we're not giving out free money. The state. So what happens is when a business can't return money, they're required by law to turn it back to the state.
Okay.
Because otherwise they're just incentivized to say, oh yeah, we looked everywhere, couldn't find them. We're going to keep the check.
So for instance, if I paid a deposit on an apartment and I move and they don't know where I moved to, they can't return the money to me. Is that some money that would have to sit with the state?
Yeah, so there's a certain dormancy period where they're supposed to try to get a hold of you, and if they can't, they are eventually supposed to give it to the state.
Okay.
And they're supposed to send over all the information they have to the state, but sometimes they don't send over very good information, so they might misspell your name. So you try different variations if it gets misspelled a lot.
Yeah.
So if it's ever given over to the state and you find out that maybe you might have had some money out there, is there any way that you can go back and get that money back from the state, or is it just lost?
Oh, no.
Actually, once it turns over to the state does not own it and it does not keep it. It just holds on to it till you claim it. So once the state has it, it's still yours and you can get it back whenever you want forever.
And it's
we
still
hold
in
it on
your name.
forever.
And it's
Yes.
still okay.
So this is not one of those gotcha things. This is truly like, look,
Yeah.
if you look it up, it is yours. The trick is they're not coming to look for you.
Right. You have to pretty much.
Correct.
Okay.
So if you don't look for your money, you don't get your money.
Let me get online.
You see what I'm saying? So this is one of those.
Let me get online.
So the one thing I like to point out, this is a totally free thing. The state will not charge you a single dime. In fact, since 2019, they'll actually pay you interest on any money that's been sitting there.
Now look at that, man. Look, you're this is lost and found, right?
Maybe I should wait 2 more years. Maybe I should
Wait. They're not paying that kind of interest, man.
Okay.
This is not like the stock market.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, if you have stocks, they sell the stocks off and just hold the money. So if you bought like Tesla or something 10 years ago
And you moved, they can't find you.
sadly they sold it 10 years ago. So don't, if it's a stock, try to get it back as fast as you can. But if it's cash, it stays there. It stays there forever until you claim it. There's never a fee. They're going to require you to prove basically who you are because there's been some scammers and fraud. So they want to make sure they're not giving the money to the wrong person.
Yeah. So that is the kick, is you do have to prove who you are to get the money, right?
And generally they'll ask for like, can you show you were connected to your old address somehow?
Oh, okay.
So it's generally not too hard. Now, if it's 20 years ago, that might be a little hard, but most people have.
It's going to be on your credit history anyway, right? So, I mean, I'm just telling people, look, if it's maybe you left, you moved from another place and maybe you had the deposit and maybe it didn't get returned to you, or there's some residual money sitting there. It could be any of those kinds of things, or I don't know, you sold a car maybe and they, for whatever reason, they couldn't. It's transactions, right? At the end of the day.
It is. It's also, say, an old bank account. I actually have an insurance. I overpaid on insurance for something.
Okay.
And for some reason they sent it to the wrong address, so I never got it.
Oh.
So that became unclaimed property. So
Oh.
it's any type of payment that a business is supposed to be sending to you that maybe the check never got there. Maybe they sent it to the wrong place. Maybe they
never got
forgot.
cashed.
Yeah, or maybe
Just never got cat.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's money that's yours, unpaid wages that say a last paycheck that didn't get cashed.
Can you imagine having a paycheck you didn't get?
No.
Thank you, because I think most of us would go look for it, right?
Right.
So, but the point is, look, if you Google Wisconsin Department of Revenue,
Yes.
right, unclaimed property, if you Google that, you will be taken to the page. And again, it's not a gotcha. It's your money. You can get it back, and then you just search it. And as long as you can show you the appropriate ID, you can get your money back, right?
And if somebody's trying to charge you to do this, just say, nope, I can do it for free.
That's right. It's
Because
a scam.
You'd have to give them the exact same information you'd give to the government anyways,
Right.
except they're taking a cut of it. So just do it yourself and get all the money.
I like your idea.
Okay, so now, John, we're wrapping this up. I know, because Jermaine's gonna be looking at me like, we got to go. So before we do have to go, what advice would you give to somebody who, now look, you ran for local office, lost. You ran for the legislature, lost. You still went out here and decided to run again statewide, and you won. What advice would you give to people who might be listening to this show, and maybe they do want to get into public office and they do want to get out here? What advice would you give them?
Well, don't start by running for statewide. I would definitely,
There we
I
go.
would say get involved locally, get involved with in local politics, whether it's county or municipal or school board, and just see see how it is. Talk to people, meet people,
Yeah,
get involved that way and work your way up.
never give up. Never give up.
That too.
All right, now we're gonna have to give it up because it is time to get up out of here. Jermaine, thank
Yes,
you very
sir.
much.
Thank you.
Debo, thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Yes, sir.
We made it another day, another week. Okay, so until next week, I guess. Peace out.